Welcome to Hacking Your Leadership. I'm Chris.
And I'm Lorenzo.
And welcome to this week's Thoughtful Thursday. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Hacking Your Leadership and leave us a review on iTunes. On this week's Thoughtful Thursday, I want to talk about an article that I saw on the Society for Human Resource Management site. I'm a member of SHRM, and the article title, which they don't ever use clickbaity titles. It's always pretty real stuff there, so I kind of like that. The title of the article is Use of Employee Monitoring Contributing to the Great Resignation? And I thought that's interesting. We just talked about, a couple weeks ago or maybe last week on the Pew Research study that talked about the reasons people have been leaving work, and none of the top reasons listed anything about employee monitoring. But a study that came out on HR technology use said that 95% of HR leaders have either implemented new methods to track and report on employee productivity in a work-from-home environment, or they have plans in the works already, going to do so. And it's an interesting thing because I think it's a new enough item where I don't think a lot of employees necessarily are articulating that that's why they're leaving organizations. They look at it almost as a part of a broader environment of a lack of trust or a lack of, I don't like my leadership team, and what that looks like on paper is, well, they're monitoring this and they're doing a lot of things. So I don't know that it's necessarily a driving force is this one item. Everything else is great here. I love my leadership team, but there's employee monitoring. So that's why I'm leaving. I'm sure some people, but maybe not everybody. But this is interesting because as a person who inherently trusts people, and who also inherently expects my leaders to trust me unless I give them a reason not to, employee monitoring is a tough pill to swallow for me. But on the flip side, I understand why the knee-jerk is there to want to do that if you have a lot of employees who are transitioning from an environment where they're always in the office to now being at home. I think a lot of leaders who are leading teams that have been work from home for a long, long time might have an easier way of going in this space because they just kind of inherently have always had to just trust as opposed to having to implement ways of validating. What do you think?
To be honest with you, most of the people that I've talked to that have been doing the work from home thing for a long time, like that's a part of the industry. Like that's a part of the job.
Oh, like it was monitoring from the beginning anyway?
It's always been that way.
Gotcha.
Right, exactly. So I know kind of the hot take on this right now is that it's new for a lot of people and that people are transitioning from in the office to work from home, and then companies that didn't have the workforce at home that just got people home, got them their stuff, and now they're implementing these protocols. Like I said, I don't think that it's anything different outside of what a lot of other companies already do when the workforce was at home. I think in the article and in the dialogue, and I know we've spoken about this before, like the right way to do it is be super transparent about it and to talk through it and to say like this is the protocol and these are the reasons why we're doing it.
Right.
Quite honestly. And I think some work from home jobs are different than other work from home jobs. A lot of those jobs in the past, if you look at certain industries or certain types of positions like recruiting or HR work, or sometimes like, graphic design and marketing and like things like that where you have to have creative time to do the work, or you have to be available when people call you or email you, or you have to have an open schedule to be able to do interviews with people. Like I think in a lot of those spaces, they didn't have much monitoring outside of your typical VPN and things like that, because you have to be kind of flexible in the work that you're doing.
Well, and your product validates it.
Absolutely.
Like if you're a recruiter and you've not recruited anybody, then there's a problem there. But if you're a recruiter and you're meeting the demands of the job, then really who cares, right?
Right. If you're a graphic designer and the expectation is I want 3 different options by Friday, I don't care how and when you do it.
Sure, yeah.
Just have it by Friday. But if you're a customer service employee working from home,
right,
and you're supposed to be taking chats or calls or emails or whatever the case is, that means you have to be available and you have to be in some type of a system, and that requires there to be monitoring and reporting to know kind of what you're doing and how you're being productive.
Right. I think so. So when I said at the beginning that it doesn't seem to be a big deal around environments that were already work from home, it's less so that, we don't need to monitor because we're already doing this and everything's working. It's that when those people took those jobs, the monitoring was part of the job they took and they knew it going into it. So the problem, if if employee monitoring is contributing to the Great Resignation, it's not the existence of monitoring. It is the implementation of monitoring on people who have never had it before and who think it's some sort of this big invasion of privacy versus the people who've just always had it and it's just part of life for them. But it brings me to a question, and what I want to ask you about is that have you had employees come to you in a work from home environment when they find out about employee monitoring? And I'm talking about even you're transparent around it. There's very clear expectations of what it is. But an employee comes to you and says, "This is an absolute invasion of privacy. I don't want to do this. But my work speaks for itself. Like I have work. You have no reason not to trust me. I have a real problem with this. I want to know how you respond to an employee like that, to make sure that their engagement and productivity doesn't drop, and that they kind of understand, what the reasons are behind this, and can kind of re-engage them in the business. But first, I want to give it up to word from one of our sponsors. All right, Lorenzo, given a fully transparent environment where, nothing's a surprise to people, how do you kind of build belief around these systems when an employee has a genuine issue with it because it's never been a part of their life before?
Well, I think it's twofold. To your point earlier, I think if you are taking a job that this is the level of work, and it's really clear what the monitoring looks like, then you're opting into that basically. Like that's a part of the job, and so
Sure.
You can complain about it, but like that's what you've accepted. I think most of the time that people have expressed concerns on monitoring, and I'll even take it outside of the work from home environment, but like it feels weird if you're a leader and you're watching somebody do their job, and then you walk up to them and I say, "Hey, Chris, I've been watching you for the last 10 minutes and I saw these things and I'd like to address them with you." And then you're like, that's weird. You know what I'm saying? Like, I get that you're a leader. I get that you're supposed to do this, but like the fact that I had no idea or had not heard of this makes it feel really weird versus me saying, "Hey, Chris, as a part of your development or coaching or consistency, or I saw that you're having some opportunity with this thing, I'm going to spend some time with you kind of watching what you do. Maybe, helping to provide you some of that and then giving you some feedback at the end of it." Then when I walk up to you and say, "Hey, I've been watching you for the last 10 minutes and this is what I want to share with you," it doesn't feel so weird anymore. You might not like it.
Right.
And you might be defensive, but like it's not weird from a monitoring standpoint. And I feel the same way a lot of times when people express concerns over monitoring, it's usually in the theme of they're either not doing what they're supposed to be doing,
Right.
they're not being as productive as they should be, they may be struggling with some elements of training, it could be new behaviors for them that they're trying to figure out. Like there's something underlying the reason that they're concerned or they're sharing concerns about monitoring. Because if you have the job, if you want to take the paycheck, and if you want to be able to go and do this work, and you don't want to be monitored, then this is probably not the job for you.
Right.
So that you should probably go find something else where you don't feel like it's an invasion of your privacy, that type of thing. Usually through the dialogue and conversation, it kind of boils down to one of these things where it's like, I'm struggling and I'm not, meeting the expectation and I need help. And I feel like this monitoring thing, like it's putting me in a bad light because I'm not doing what I should be doing. But most of the time it's because they really just need help, training, or some type of mentorship to work through what they need to do to be successful.
Right. I think the intent of the leader in the implementation, as well as transparency around the intent. And so I think this is a huge difference. So I'll give a great example of this. No one likes speed traps, right? The cop on the motorcycle is hiding behind the tree with the radar gun, right? Mm-hmm. It feels inherently bad when that happens because it feels like someone's trying to catch you doing something that you're doing wrong. And if the stated goal is to have people drive the speed limit, then what's just as effective at getting somebody to drive the speed limit is just the presence of the police officers driving on that road. Because if you know there are cops driving on that road all the time, then you're gonna drive more slowly. And that feels okay. That feels like, okay, if the goal is the safe speed, then getting there by having just the presence is a good thing. If it's hiding behind a tree with a radar gun, it doesn't feel like the goal is necessarily safe speed anymore. It feels like the goal is revenue collection. Like let's get as many tickets written as we can. And that's why it inherently feels bad to people when they're being monitored. If I'm in a job and the leader comes up to me and says, "Hey, I'm going to watch the next 3 interactions you have with your customers, and then I want to give you feedback on it afterwards." It's like, okay, now I know I know how to be on my best behavior. I know how to do this. And then as a leader, you might be thinking, well, if they know you're doing it, then how will you know? Yeah, that's exactly it. The goal is that you want to give the people the answers to the test so that you know that they have the ability to do it. So that when the results aren't there, they can't say, I don't know how to do this. You can say, well, I watched you when we the last 8 times I watched you, I said I was going to watch you. You did those interactions and they were perfect. I have no feedback to give you, which means if you're not performing as a whole, it means you're choosing not to do these things. And that's very different than you don't know how to do these things. And so the use of these things as a tool for performance management and people development can be a very, very good thing if you use them the right way, which is for that. If the goal is not, I want to get rid of people who are bad, but the goal is, I want to make sure that if a person has to go away because of lack of performance, that I can put my head on the pillow as a leader, that I did everything I could to get them there. I did everything I could to help them get to the high performance, to do what they need to do to get their job done, and that I wanted them to succeed. And despite all my efforts, they just weren't able to do the job, and now they have to go away. That's very different than, let's see who I can find messing around. And that's where it feels good versus feeling bad with employees, I think. So again, there is no, like if you're a leader of people, the likelihood of it being your decision to implement these things is probably very small. Most of the people listening, it's not your decision to implement this. It's your company's decision, and it is what it is. It's life. How you interpret it, how you use it, and how you talk to your people about it will make all the difference in terms of how engaged they are, or whether or not they decide to make this one of the reasons they quit.
Absolutely. And with that, it brings us to the end of this episode. This is Hacking Your Leadership. I'm Lorenzo.
And I'm Chris.
And have a great day.